Okay, hello everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Is this one? Increase the voice. Your voice was low. Can you say again something?
Hello? Yeah, I said like you are audible.
Okay, okay. Okay, so today what we do? Firstly, we will start with the basics of JavaScript. The very basics because these things would be required for you to understand how does an app work in a when we use Vue. Okay. After that, we will move on and then look at two previous term projects. One is based on CDN, other is based on CLI, and understand the difference between both of them. Because what I feel is if we see the example in front of us, that a project built in front of us, we see the examples and differentiate them easily. Then we can easily differentiate with them and understand the property. Otherwise, if I go on making you understand that this is like CLI works, this is how CDN works, then you won't be able to understand those, right?
Yes, yes.
So I will show you, demonstrate you first two projects. One is based on CDN, other is based on CLI. Because the thing is, in case of Flask, we are when we learn the Flask things, we are able to see the output directly, right? But in case of Vue.js, we have to see the thing is JavaScript can't be run on the normal environment. We have to install Node.js for that, and it can run only in the uh, browser console. So that's why better it would be if you see the difference between both the applications and then go with which one you want to make. Okay, let's wait for 1 or 2 more minutes. If anyone has joined, then we will start. Okay, so let us start now. Let me share my screen first. Okay, so let me first showcase the projects which you may have already seen in the previous term. In the earlier session, you may have seen this project also. The same thing I'm going to show you. It is with a understanding, explaining all these things also. See, so if we look at my screen is visible, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Hmm. Okay. So see, this is our, let me just, this is our project. Okay. So now in this case, what you see, this is the, here we go, yeah. This is you see our main file, which we run as you may have, as Aditya also made the main file for the running the project also, right? Now you want to see the other files which are here. These are API, okay? These are API files, configuration files, then mailer, models, tasks, and workers. All these things you already know that how these things work and all. Okay. We are not going to details of all of them. So when we create a project in the view also, that backend is running on the Flask and frontend is running on the VueJS, then what we do is we have a choice. Either make a project folder like structure like backend folder alike, frontend folder alike. That makes your separation of things like backend is running on other place, backend is separated by the folder, and frontend is separated by the folder. You can also have a structure like this. Like you can have applications folder which will have all the applications you have defined. Okay, just one project folder, and in the project folder you have these different folders which will have the complete project. Okay, this is a virtual environment. This is the Vue CLI I have installed and create the project in the same project folder. So you are seeing here no differentiation of folders. And it also works because the thing is, we can just declare whenever we are using anything, we just declare this relative location. So using the relative location thing, we can just get to the location that this thing we are going to access. When we are accessing the API, we are accessing this API from this location, so we can use those things. Now, this is another app which is made using the front end backend separately, but this is made using the Vue CDN. So both things can be done vice versa. Like you can make a project like structure like that, which I have shown here, which I have shown. Here is it? Yeah, here. Or you can have a project structure like this, which is available here. Advisable is this folder structure, which is backend differently, front end differently. Why? Because it separates your projects and understanding of the things also, and also it separates things like which should whenever any issue you face, then it becomes easy for you to navigate to the issue that it is a front-end issue. You can navigate to the front-end easily. Okay. Now we are done with the backend thing. Now let us go to
Same
front-end.
file
This is the app.
outside this folder, correct?
Yeah, we can have main file inside the folder also. We can have main file outside the folder also. That is up to us because the thing is when we are defining these things in main file, you see, I am importing these things generally from API import API. If I define the main file outside this, then I will write from backend.api import API.
Okay, okay.
Okay. So that is the thing that understandable. Just importing things can be done. Now, let us first look at the project which is based on CDN because it is just simply simple to see. Okay. Because the thing is, what is CDN? CDN is Content Delivery Network. In this, what we have is we just use this URL of the, you see here, this is jQuery, this is Vue URL, Vue 3 URL. When we click on this link, let us open this link first. You see, this is a complete code of Vue written here. So we don't need to add all these things, node modules and all these things if we use this thing here. So this makes our application easy to make. But the thing is, the issue which comes in Vue CDN is it is not scalable much. Even if you make it, we want to scale it, we can't scale it much, we can't add other functionalities which are required later. Okay. Then what is in this structure? Let me just show you the structure first. Then we move on to JS, then look at the app, this project again, we will look at it and then understand that. Okay. Now if you look at it, Firstly, we have the index file, which is just the, you can say that in if we make a project in, if you have made Madden project also, you have one index file or the base.html, which will serve as the main file, and then you extends the main dot backend bus file to the other template files and then run the application, right? Now in this case, what we have is we are just having only one HTML file, which is index.html. Now what we are doing is we are just importing the view here. We are importing using the CDN. We are just importing this bootstrap, this chart.js, and all these things. Okay. Now you see here, as I have defined these things, style sheet for front end slash assets slash CSS is styles of CSS. So that is the thing which I said you, that we can keep these things by changing the location. So if you just change the location here, and if you are making some other projects up here, that will also work. Here. Now the thing is, we are not going to make many HTML files here. Like in the Madden project, we have made so many HTML files. If we are making a create, if we are making a, let's say if we think about the household services app, then in that scenario, what we have is we have to create a new service. So for creating a new service, we create a new HTML file. For creating a new service request, we create a new HTML file. For rating a service, we create new HTML file. And all these things. For admin dashboard, we create new HTML file and all these things. All these things we will not do here. What we do is we will just add, just make this body and this thing. Why HTML is required here? Because HTML is the skeleton of the app. You already know that in web development, HTML is the skeleton of the web applications. So when we see here, so it is just a HTML file which we on running, it just opens a page and then everything starts from here. This div ID app. If you recall from this ID, what is this ID? It is just a normal ID of a HTML tag, like attribute ID. So what it does, it is just like the class thing is defined for many things and ID is defined for only one particular thing. Here. Now when we go to front end, we see index.html is here. Now when you go to app.js, now it is saying go to app.js, divide is app. Okay. Then we are also importing this app.js here. Okay. In this app.js we are importing, and in this what we are doing is we are defining the routes. The routes thing which we have done in the creation of, if we go to backend, if I show you the backend thing and let me go to api.py. So if you recall from this project, see here, these are the routes thing which Aditya also has defined, right?
Routes, you mean API
But
endpoints, correct?
API is API endpoints, yes. They are the API endpoint which Aditya also has defined, if you recall from there. Let me open that project also. Disconnect it with- Yeah, this folder is going to open. Okay, this was the folder which Aditya has made. You see applications. These files are coming here because I have just, he has made the project in Windows and I am making this project in WSL. That's why these files are coming. You can just ignore these files. Okay, these PyCache files and these API.py zone identify files, you can just ignore them. That is not none of your concern for here. Okay. Now, when we go to main.py, you see these are the files which actually also added here. These are the API endpoints. Here,
Yes.
so same thing is defined here also. If I show you, let me go to this project, yeah. So you see these things are we are defining here. Now what we do is, as Aditya has already explained, that when we do API register, so this API slash register, when we open this URL, when we hit this URL in the browser, then what happens is it shows just a JSON output, right? JSON response. Like if you open, let's say Postman is, yeah, here is a Postman. If I create new CTP request and run the project and create new CTP request, then in that scenario, if I just write the URL and then hit it, then I will have get, post, put and delete all these requests here, and then I will get my response in JSON format, or I get a response in JSON format, or I post my response in JSON format, or I put means update the response using JSON, right? Is that clear?
Yes, yes, yes.
So in backend, what we were doing all these things. Where is this? Yeah. So see, when we do these things using JSON, so API is doing all this in JSON. Now what we want is what we will doing is we will be just using these API endpoints to fetch contents in our front end. We will use these API endpoints to fetch the contents. If we are getting some data, if we are posting some data, that means get, post, put, and delete. If we are doing all these things, then we do those things using just JSON response. Just we use JSON response, update JSON response, and all these things we do there, and then make our application. So these, instead of these JSON responses, our front end will show us the UI, which is the UI generally users see. So front end will show that UI only. So if I run this application, let me show you once running it. Let me go in the backend. You see, because this is made using CDN, that's why it is only one server will work here. If I click here, so you see this is now opening. Clear? Now you see, if I have created this, if I go to inspect, and you see here, it is just looking me like a normal HTML page only. Normal HTML page it is looking like, but actually what it is you see, it is saying that it is a view app. Clear? It is just similar, looks similar to this, but when I click on, let's say, if I go to any route I write, it will not work here. Okay. If I write slash dashboard, uh, it is not, because it is
I
not
think
there.
we need to put hash and then slash dashboard.
Yeah, those things
Hash,
are
hash,
there.
hash.
Okay. Yes, yes. So see here, when we run the application for the first time, it is, these are the API which is calling it. Okay. These are the get requests which gets these details like content assets, these things it is calling. And now it is calling all these components. What a component is, just like a component, you can say that a part of it. Let's say if we make a car also, then car also has different components. Like this is engine, this is the windshield and all these things. So similarly, when we are making application, these are the different components. There is a login.js, login component, admin component, dashboard component. And where are we defining all these things? We are defining all these things in the components folder. Admin dashboard.js, we are defining these components here, these are the different components. And when we create an app using CDN, we just create .js files in component files. In component folder, we just create .js files. Clear?
Yes, yes. So
And
basically, what in our means in our Mad One project, we basically creates .html files. Many files were there, so as to
yes,
show in the
and
front end.
all
So
those were in,
likewise,
yes,
hmm,
all those were in the templates folder, right?
yes, yes, yes. So likewise in
And
this
here,
in
yeah,
components.
yeah, in this,
Okay.
all these HTML files are in components folder. Here, I am just
Clear.
taking correlation with the mad one so that you don't get confused anywhere. Okay, so these are just component files, you can think of it. Okay, just different things. Okay, now what is this app.js? Now this component is another, you can say, just a folder name. I can make this folder name as, let's say, instead of this component, I can call this some other name. What the thing I am doing here is, you are see here, this app.js I have made, and in this app.js, I have done the importing of all these components which I have made here. So this is the component, just importing things, you understand, just normal English, importing things from components login.js. So I'm just importing these named things from the components. Clear? Is it clear?
Yes, got it.
Yes.
Can you
Now,
explain again?
okay. So see, this is the components folders. Okay. Then when we are using the Mad1 project, when we create the Mad1 project, in that case we have templates folder. In the template folder, we have so many HTML files. Now When we do the project using Vue CDN or Vue CDN, then what we do is we create a components folder inside the frontend folder. The folder thing I am just saying for reference for here only. Folder structure can be different for you, or different for me, different for other person also. Here, just the thing is, we create a folder in which we keep all the files. You can also divide these things like instead of this admin dashboard, you can keep this like admin components differently, user components differently, and influencer components differently, sponsor components differently. These things can also be done. Clear? Now, when we go to let's say admin dashboard, so it is just like a template file. You see here template. It is just like a template file which we have created in our Mad1 project. Just there were many templates, na? Admin dashboard.html, read add request.html, all those files if you recall from your Mad1 projects. So all those files, just think it like we have made all these files here using the JavaScript and Vue. This much is clear?
Yes,
Yeah,
this much clear.
Okay. Now what we are doing here is we have defined one more file which is app.js. What we are doing in this, we are just importing all these files. We are importing all these files and defining the routes. We are just importing all these files here and then defining the routes. You see routes word here, normal routes word, which is defining the routes. Route means what comes here. You see what comes here is the slash thing. After slash, what comes here is the route thing. You already know these things from Mad1. So that thing we are doing here, importing the we are importing these JS files and then creating the constant routes we are creating. Just ignore these things for now, these constant things and all. Just think it like we are just creating these routes. The slash should be login. Login should be available on the slash function. Okay. Slash route, login should show. Then if I write register sponsor, that means if I go in the here, if I click on register sponsor, you click, see, register sponsor route is coming here, right? But it came very quickly. It did not load it here. You just see reload this page is coming here, right? If I reload this page, so there is some reloading going on. But if I just click here, you see reloading did not happen, right? But if I do this thing in Mad1, then reloading happens, right?
Got it, got it.
yes, yes.
Then why is the reloading not happening here? Because we have just created one HTML file. If we create two or three HTML files, then reloading happens again. Not changing those files. But reloading is not happening because this complete structure, if I go to inspect, this complete structure is based on uh, yeah, see, we see here front-end folder, then assets, app.js, and this complete file is actually .index.html only. In that file only, we are running this complete app. So just you see, you think it like that. If we have one page and on that page we are writing something, then erasing that thing and then writing those things again and again. And in Mad1, what we did, in Mad1, we created so many pages and flipped it like a book. We are going from one page to another page, but in this case, what we are doing is we are just on the same page and just writing something and erasing it, writing something, erasing it. That's why different routes are coming here. Clear?
Got it.
Okay. So now these things is clear to you. Anywhere you feel any doubt, just let me know. Okay. So now we have defined these routes here. This much is clear. Okay. Now this is just the router thing. We will look at it later. Okay. Now this thing is clear. The CDN part. How is the CDN thing actually working?
Yes, yes, clear. And what is asset folder?
Assets folder is just like a SR, what we call is static folder. In which in the when we have made Mad1 project, we have created a static
The
folder, right?
stats and all, chats and all, what we need to show. Bar
No,
chart, pie chart,
no, no,
correct?
not like that actually. Here we are not showing the stats like that. See what we do is in this case, in our this kind of folder, assets is just like uh, normal word asset. What does asset mean? That what all things you have that you want to show. Or let's say if you want have some images which you want to show in the background as background images, or if you want to show some things like CSS that you see style of CSS is here. You want to show some images, you can show those images here. Okay, so all these things comes in assets folder. Just like a static folder in Manual project, here we have assets folder. Clear?
Okay, okay.
The folder name does not matter here. Again, I'm saying this folder name does not matter. You can even write this folder as static folder. That is completely okay. When we are defining these things, just you see here it is just importing getting these things from S the frontend slash asset. It is getting the CSS style.css content, right? So you can just change the folder name, and whenever we are importing this folder, whenever we are getting the data from this folder, just edit the folder name also there. That will also work. Clear? Now we are done with this thing. Now let me show you the other project structure.
So one thing I want to ask, like it's a Vue 2 or Vue 3?
It is view 3. You see here, na? You see when are we importing this? Index.html. You see here. It is view at 3.
Okay, okay.
It is view 3. Don't worry with this words like view 3, view 2, view and all. Okay. Just simply call it view only. Okay. Whatever be the
Okay,
latest version, we are using it.
okay, okay.
Let me show you the structure of the same thing. Let us go to now this one project. Okay. Now in this case, think it like the same thing. Like what we have is backend folder and frontend folder. Think that this is the frontend folder completely. Okay. Ignore these. Think it like application folder is the backend folder, and this is the complete is the frontend folder. Clear? Now in this frontend folder, what we have is we have this SRC. Everything we are doing inside this SRC only. We have this index.html also here. What does it index.html do? It is doing the same thing, just importing the bootstrap and defining basic things. Then again we do the same thing which you see here. Okay, that's all. This is the main thing of import index file. Okay. Now remaining task goes inside this SRC folder. Okay. Now what happens in the SRT folder? If you go to there is one more folder you see here, node modules. If you go to one file, you see so many files here. Just you just have to ignore these things because these are none of your concern. These are just the all the codes which we have seen in the link which I have opened you for the yeah. This is all the codes you think you can say that this code is completely available in all the node modules we have imported here. Clear?
Okay.
This complete code you can think it as this complete code is available in this node module. So that's why it is command line interface we are doing using. Okay. We have imported these things in our laptop only. Instead of using it via CDN, via content eliminator, we are using it in our laptop only. So now if our laptop is not connected to the internet also, it will still work. But in case of CDN thing, if our laptop is not connected to the internet, then it will not work. Okay. So now what comes is we have index.html
Means
here.
we have saved locally in our system
Yes,
these
this
things.
thing is saved locally in our system.
Mm.
Now index.html is clear. Now we go to SRC folder. You can think it like SRC folder is similar to if I show you the structure here, the all these things here, the you can think the front end folder is only SRC folder, the same thing. More things will we get clear when we create the new project. In our case, now this is the SRC thing. In this, you see again the assets folder. You can keep the PDF here, whichever the PDF you are creating to create. You can keep the PDF here. Okay. Now this is the component folder again. You see, this is the router folder. Stores. Just ignore this. Okay. None of the concern for now. Routes. The same thing as we have seen in the app.js. We are importing something and then defining those routes. That this should be the slash. This should be the login. On login, what thing should be visible? This login user should be visible. And where is this login user coming from? It is coming from this components. Clear? And what are these files now? You see V symbol here. These are the view files. When we do a project using Vue CLI, then these are the view files. You see? Okay. So these are the view files, and in this scenario, we are just using the view files to create our complete project. The complete, you can say template, instead of this template files, we have this view files now. Clear?
Clear, clear.
So where are we shifting from? We first see our HTML files in the Madden project. Here we see the JS files in the CDN based project. Now we are seeing the CLI based files, view files in our CLI based project. Clear? And we are doing the same thing every time. We are doing this home component, this login component, all these things we are doing here. Clear? So this should be the route. Clear?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So now this thing is also clear. Now let us move on to learning JavaScript. Okay.
Hi, I want to ask one question.
Yes.
Uh, in backend folder, we
Mm.
we created virtual environment.
Yes.
So in frontend, we will also create virtual environment or not?
No.
No.
Virtual environment is created for Python applications only.
Okay.
In frontend, we are not running the Python applications. So you can say it like virtual environment folder is created only for the task of this what you call Python Flask app running. If you are running the Flask app, you just have to, in that scenario only, you have to run the virtual environment. Otherwise, you run virtual environment or not run virtual environment, or if it is activated, you can still activate your project. You can still run your app. Clear? Even if I let me show you the running the application. In case of, let me just close this once. Hmm, Let me run the Vue CLI app now. Okay. This is a Vue CLI app. Now let us new terminal. Let me open this. Okay. So firstly, see which folder we are in. We are inside the project folder. Okay. Now in this folder only we will be running our app, which is firstly Python 3 main.py. Now you see when I run this, it is not importing things like here. If you see in here, importing things, or you can say getting things, it is not doing this get calls to these requests, right?
Yeah,
Why is it
yeah.
not doing these things here? Why is this not doing these things here? Because in this scenario, we have defined our, it has to call all these things at first place. Whenever we are running the view app with Vue CDN, it has to call all these things at the first instance when the app is running. Okay, so that it can show us on these things on the front end. But in case of this app with Vue CLI, in this case, what we are doing is we have just run the application. Now, if I click on this link, it is saying 404 not found, right? Because it is, but if I do one thing, let's say, you see here, it is trying to get this page, but it is saying not available, right? But if I go to the APIs which are defined here, let me go to the API file and let us do API slash login, or which is the open thing. Let us use Postman here. See, API slash login. So what is the use? Let me check the admin password first. Admin at gmail.com. Let us go to Postman. We are sending post request. Just copy this. Slash API slash login. Okay. We have defined it using the, where is that? using post request only, right? So in the post request, we have to send the username and email and password. So let us go back. Use that. In this case, authorization header is not required first. Why is not something is coming here? Okay, now it is coming right.
I think in fact, when you highlighted this thing, means when you showed this thing, so CLI server also need to run. Just because of that.
No, I have not run the CLI server right for now. I
Okay,
have not
okay.
run the CLI server. That is a different server. Okay, so email was admin@gmail.com. Then password okay. Now just sending a post request. Send. Oh, sorry, I have not read the slash API slash login. Copy this. So let me open the Postman again. Body slash ROS JSON. Paste it here. Post request with this slash API. Postman is not running now. It's okay. I think previous one is also stopped now. This one I already stopped. This one is already not running. Let me just close this. I think some issue with my system because fan started running because of this. No, 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 no. Virtual memory not activated with. Mhm. There is some issue with this, I think, Postman.
Sir,
Yes?
sir, if it's not running, you can continue with the JavaScript.
Yeah. I am continuing that.
Yes.
The thing is, which I want to show is that if I run this, then it sends us these things, email ID and password, and gives us a token which you already have seen in the previous backend classes.
We can see in
Let me
tomorrow
see.
class then. Okay, na?
What is it?
I'm saying we can see this on tomorrow's class if it is not means running
Yeah, no
right
worries.
now.
No.
Okay, na?
Yeah, no worries.
We can move
So,
ahead with
and
Java.
I'm moving over it. Don't worry. Let me open new terminal, and the new terminal what we run is we run the front npm run dev service for the front. If you see here, this folder is running now. This is not running, but the other folder is the URL is running, which is the front end URL. So you see that because the thing is we have configured these things here. Where have we defined these things? We have defined these things here. That when we run this, we go to VueJS config. You see here, I have defined my target URL that this URL should be hitted when we run the application first time. Here or every time this instead of this API thing, it replaces this with this, and when we get the data from fetch the data and all these things, you see here, these things we are doing. Let me show you here. You see here, this fetching, we are fetching the details from this API customer register and all these things, and then updating these things using JavaScript and Vue. Here, so I hope these things are clear to you. Let me close this also and close this also.
And if we are creating virtual environment outside this backend and front end, then I think there will be no issue, right?
Yeah, in that scenario, there will be no issues.
Because I have created means virtual environment directly. I have not created inside backend.
Yeah, that is okay. That is okay.
Okay, okay.
Open the our folder for project. Okay, this is our app which we are going to work with. So this is the application, this is the front end. So firstly, let us see run the JavaScript first. Okay. Let me get a new folder. This is this setup. Again, to run this. Okay, so now it is created. Around this folder, let us just create our HTML basic HTML file. Okay. Normal document. Let's create. Okay, so let me also tell you the plugin which I am using, extension which I am using for now. And for the development, we will be using this extensions. These will help us mm, in making the application faster. Okay, and resolving the errors easily. Because the thing is, when we make the app, when we make this using JavaScript, then we are using fetch API calls. Then in fetch API calls, what we do is we have to check at every condition if you have taken a look at the two folder considerably. Let me just go once again. Let me just show that. You see here, if you see anything, let me just show you this. Let's see. See, when we are doing this thing, or when we are doing this, you see here, then we are checking these things at times that if response is okay or not, and all these things, we are if else catching. So these things generally get skipped from our mind for checking these things. That's why if we use these extensions, these will help us remember these things and auto complete the code also. Okay. So the extension which we are using currently is one is Codium. We have used also I have taught you these things in the MAD one. Those who have taken, you know this. Then Postman for the thing like that. And then other is tab 9. You just click on tab 9 and then log in it with your an email ID and then it will work here. Okay, so it just auto helps in auto completion of the code. And Codium also helps in auto completion. So both things together and help you work faster.
So
So
both we need to install Podium and that's the thing with that is it.
well, Codium. Codium is a little bit slower, but it works. It has some different commands which are helpful for us, and Tab9 is has different commands which are helpful for us.
So
Okay,
which we need to install?
both install both.
Okay, okay.
So now let's have JS test heading here. Okay, now let us import that script. Why is it? See, it is. Let me have one more file here, which is let's have app.js file. Okay, so whatever we do in there only. So script app.js. Okay, now if we just run this app using just mm, live server is not installed here. If we open with live server, install here. Okay, this integer HTML file is open now. Now what we do here, if we want to do these things, so let us see in the by app.js. So what we define is, let us say we define variables. So in this, we define, firstly see what are the things we have in JavaScript. So like Python and other programming languages, we have the variables, then constant. So we have the variable name let. If you have done the mat2 course, then you are already familiar with this. If you're not done, then also I'm take into consideration that you have taken the macro along with this. So let's say I am defining a variable named let name. The variable name is name equal to, let's say I write the name as Naman. Okay. Now let's say I also define your age. Let's say I write 22. Okay. In this case, we use the in JavaScript we use the semicolon for auto completion for the stop or completion of the statement. Let's say we call stopping condition, right? So this is for defining constants thing which will not change. You may have also seen this when I have shown you the projects. Okay, we have used constant most of the places, right? In constant and let, what is different with let, and there is also one way to define this with using where. So let's say Naman, Naman with where. Okay. Now if I want to do console.log, console.log means just the thing you can think it like print statements in Python. So if I do console.log, now where will it log? It will not log in my terminal or not here, it will not log here. I have to go to the browser window and there it will log. So if I say control.log, let's say I want to name and value, let's say I log only value. Okay. Then I control.log age. Now you see when we go in the app, we run the app, let's go inspect in console, you see name Naman is coming here and your age is also coming here. Naman with where is coming because we have console log there. Yeah, now if I do console.log, what is the other variable we defined? We defined I think name, right? Now you see here. It is also coming console.log as Naman because name was defined. Clear?
Oh,
Now what is the difference in where and let? So let is used for the local scope and where is used for the global scope. If you are defining by the where, then it is used for the globally. Earlier we used where only. You can say where is the older thing, let is the newer thing. Earlier we used where only, but later on after 2015 and around 18 around, so it changed to let. So people started using let also after the some years in updation in the JavaScript also. Then we also have these variables. Let's say I want to have the variable of boolean variable. So let's say I call let is a student. If I call it as false, let's say, okay. So this is if it's student, we can call it false, or let's say now computer log student. If you do, then you please update here. False is also coming here. Clear? Whatever changes we are doing there are coming reflecting here also. So this is a boolean variable. Now let's say we have an array also because you may have seen that we are using array things also. So let's say we have the same thing which is coming. I'm just showing it. Let's say we have log console log marks also. So this is just an array thing. Like in Python, you can say Python list. Here we have array. So why are we using it? Using this let because in Python also we define a list as L is equal to some list, right? In Python we define it like that. So here also we define it like that it is a variable name and not a global scope. It is just a local scope variable only. Clear? So if you see here, you will see that this is also coming, and these are different things. Prototype of array. Clear? Now we can use all these things of this array because we defined an array. Now array comes with already defined prototype, already defined functions, so we can use all these functions of this array. Here it is also telling us the length of this array. Now if we want to use any of the functions, we can use these functions. Clear? If I do, let's say, Now let us sort the array. So as you see, if we do the same thing, looping thing we see for now we are defining let the same thing in you do it the same thing in C++ or C language or in Java also you do similar little bit. So we are defining firstly that this is a let is a local variable, then starting it with this. If I is less than I is the main thing, normal Python thing. Okay, length of marks is less than this I plus plus, and then sorted the push marks. Just the same thing which we do in Python, we do append, and we are doing this thing here as some push, clear, and marks for ith value, clear.
Okay. So everything what we are doing, we need to check in console only, Chrome.
Yeah,
It will be not
because
like mad one what we are seeing in live server one while opening that HTML and what we can see. But here in Mac 2 we need to check in console only. Correct, no?
yes, yes, because the thing is JavaScript is not made to be run in your any what we call this terminal like thing. When we run the Python script or Python app we run, so we see the directly output, we directly see on the terminal or the console. We see that what is the output,
Okay.
right? Let's say if I run print hello world, so print hello world comes in the terminal itself.
Correct,
But
correct.
in this case, these things do not come in the terminal. We have to use this console only, browser console only. We use. Okay.
Okay, okay.
Now, if I want to have a function, now how to define a function? There are many ways to define a function. Let us look at first way to define a function. Okay. So let's say we define a function. The function name is, let's say I define a function name greeting. Okay. Then we are just putting some name here. Let's say name is, we are just, you can call this as a, what we call is parameter of the function. Okay. So when we're writing this function here, now let's just write console.log hello and name. Now if I do this, how to call this? Let's say if I do see greeting and then write the name, or if I do console.log greetings along with some name, let's say I call who is also here Raja. Okay, so what will come first? First comes Raja and then see here. Is there error? Okay, it was greeting, not greetings. You see here, hello Raja, then hello Naman. Clear? Is it clear?
Yes, yes, yes.
So whenever you want to run these things, you have to run these things only in the browser console. There is no other way to run these things. Okay. So function is also done. Now let us move on to some objects in JavaScript. Okay. Why we learn objects in JavaScript? Because in Vue also we have to create a object, and in those objects we are defining some methods and mounted things and all these things. What change should be there? It is just like what things should be there when we load the app for the first time. When you have seen the when I've shown you the application for the sponsor influencer, so when we run the application for the first time, you see you have seen that in the terminal get call was made for all the JS files, right? The similar thing we do in mounted also. So in view thing, so that's why we need to learn the objects also. Objects in objects in JavaScript. Let's see, learn. Okay. Now let's say we have object like person. and let's say we define their names. Now, how are we defining these things? It is just, you can say, if I correlate this with, just can auto complete this. Why is it coming? Just you see here. Now, what is this object thing in JavaScript? So, what is this object thing is like? You can think of it this as a dictionary, JSON, or you can think it like a dictionary. In Python, we have dictionary, right? So, same thing you can think it like this, that this is a name, age, and is student the thing. But the thing is, the difference comes here from Python dictionary is that in dictionary, and we are defining that first thing, if I we have the key value pairs, but it's just the same thing, key value pairs we are defining here. Here, the difference comes is like we do not define it by the let statement or all these things like that. And in dictionaries, we do not have the functions defined. If I do the same thing again, okay. So this is also another way to define a function. Let's say we define a function greet and use colon and then write function here. Here, how do we define this function? We define the function within function. Then this function name along with this parameter. What is the parameter argument we have to pass in the function? Another way is first write the function name and then write that this is a function and then write this same thing as here. Clear? Now what is this dot name? This dot name is there to get the name of this. This is, you can say, a permanently or for a keyword in JavaScript. This is used to call this object's details. This is used to reference these objects names. So if I go in the browser and if I see here, number is coming up. Okay. So this is how it is defined here. Now, if I say that if I do control counter.log person.name, clear? If I do this, then what it will show me? It will show me the name of the person which we have defined in the object. Clear? This is the inside this person we have defined this variable, or you can say key value pair. So we are writing this person, then we are calling this key, and inside this key, what is the value stored? It will show that value. Clear?
So this is what you defined object here, right?
Yes, this is how we define an object in a JavaScript. And
I
can you
see.
see the difference here? Object can have any type of value. This object can have either a string type of value, or it can have an integer type of value, or it can have a boolean type of value, or it can have a array type or list type of value. And it can also have a function. Okay. Now, if I want to call this function, how do I call this function? If I just write console.log, if I write greet, okay, then this will not work. If I just call it like this also, it will not work here. You see, error, greet is not defined. Why? Because greet function is defined inside a object. It is defined inside the object. So how can I call this? I will call this using the object name only. Person dot greet. Here, now you see the difference here. It is coming hello Naman. First Naman, this hello Naman is coming. Clear? Because of this hello, yes,
Got it.
inside of this.
One doubt is I'm having like in line 24.
Line 24, yes.
Yeah. In line 24 and 26 new statements. Like in 26, I think we have called that a function itself. And in 24, we have called a function with console.log.
Yes.
I just lost you in there. So can you please repeat once difference between 24 and 26?
In 24, what we are doing is we are doing console.log and then calling the function and printing that function also. See, function itself prints something. Function itself, what does the function do? Function itself prints something. This
Correct.
function is going to print something, right?
Correct.
If I just call this function. Then this
Correct.
function is also going to print something.
Mm-hmm.
Then also I'm calling this using the console.log and then printing something, which is like printing something twice.
Okay.
So let me just write hello. Let's call is inside function. Okay. Raja. Now we see coming here. Hello inside function and then Raja. And hello inside function then Naman. Now Naman is differently defined here. What is this undefined coming here? You see that when we are doing this console.log, then we retains Raja. That's why it is calling undefined. Why calling undefined? Because we have defined this console.log here. It is for
Twice.
printing. And then we are doing the same thing here. That's why it is not printing properly.
Okay, okay. So we are
Okay.
means in that we are defining twice the print thing. So that is why it is having issue,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
If I just remove this, then you see it will also get printed. Now you see help function Raja is coming. But if I do the same thing as earlier, let us open this one side by side. Okay. Now you see here. Now if I write greetings Raja and inside this console.log, now you see firstly it is calling. This is function defining, so we are not doing anything here. Now you see after this we have defined function Raja. Now if I just let have some space here. Okay. Now function Raja is here. Now next time firstly it is calling this thing because it is calling this function first. Clear? Let me call this space. Now you see here. First Raja is coming. Then after this it is doing this function calling first. After this, because we are calling this with this statement, right? This Raja we are calling with this. That's why it is doing this thing. And after that, it goes on to the other console.log. It is like print inside print. So first it prints the inside one print. Are you getting this?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
And after that, if we are doing this thing, that print of print, then that's why it is saying undefined. But if I do this like that, a normal variable, let's use other variable here. Now you see here. Now it is getting printed. There is a similar thing as in Python we do. Like we use double quotes and single quotes to differentiate between what is a function, what is not a function, and what is we have to want to print actually, right? The same thing we are doing here. Here,
Yes, got it. Thanks.
now for now, what we were doing is we were writing this thing as whatever. Then what we are doing now is we are just console.log doing. We are doing console.log as a print statement. Now, what if we want to return something from the function? Let's have a function return. Okay, function will return. So let's say I define a function again. Function. hmm, Let's have a function greet with again the name. Okay, then we return with the thing like this hello dot name. Okay, now if we do call the function, is the function we define. Now if I do greet with the name, let's say if I write Amit, So it is telling us hello Amit. Clear? Clear? That was just print statement. Now this is with the return statement also. Okay.
Got it.
Now there are some other things if you may have recall in if you have done the Mad2 theory also, then you may recall from that as there was some promise and all those things, promise, async await, all those things. We are not going to do those things because those things will just make these things complicated. We are just looking at the basic things of this that will make our task easy. Okay. Now after this, let's say we define, and also if I want to call this function, there is one more way to call this, define this function. Let's call it like this. Now here, if I'm writing it like this time, instead of this, I can also write there this double quotes, curly braces, and then use dollar sign here. And in this scenario, what we do is we just use backtick. Backtick are using here. Okay. Now you see, if I call this function again, let's say greet Naman, plus is also coming because of this backtick. Greet, and so this is now you see, it is telling me that hello Amit, which I have written here. Now this is another way of defining and accessing, defining a function and accessing the return statements. Or you can say this is like a template thing. If you recall from what we have seen in the previous projects, if you recall from there, then we were using this backtick thing when we are defining the template structure in the Syrian project. Okay, this thing is clear.
Mm.
Both ways of defining a function by this return thing. Okay. Now let's have another function called arrow function. Okay, let's have constant add. What it does, it will take two variables a and b and give us the sum of those variables. This view is equal to then this symbol of this, and then define what it should return. It should return a plus b. Okay, let's say I want to return this a plus b. What will we do? Is suggesting that conf.log add this. You see here, it's coming here. Now, if I want to call this function also, I can call this that add, and I want to add this like 1, comma 2. You see 3 is coming here. The similar add function. So this is a arrow function. Clear? Clear?
Yes, yes.
Now, now there is something called for each loop, for each concept and mapping concept. Okay. So now you will be using these mapping things when you are defining some API endpoints. So let us move on to the mapping. Let's look for each. Okay. Now let's say take giving some examples. Let's take the example you see. Let numbers we are defining. Clear? We define we define a number as a array, and these numbers we write in it. Now we are writing numbers dot for each. For each is just you can say a keyword, another keyword, which prints, which uses the, which creates a function in it, and then we are using the print statement. So for each takes everything one by one from this function and then prints it. You can say this is a function that we have defined. Okay. Inside this for each, what we are doing is inside for each we are defining a function that takes a number, and which number it should take? It will take number from this numbers array. It will take this number from this numbers array, and then we are doing this console.log of this number. Clear? Let's say if I want to write it another way, I can write, let's say,
So one at a
numbers
time
dot,
it is taking, right?
yeah, one at a time it is taking for each. And if I do it like, let's say, instead of defining it like this function, let us define it using a arrow function so that you can get it better understanding. So let's write function name as, from this what we are getting actually, from this number what we are getting is we are getting number only, right? From this numbers list we are getting a number here, right? Inside this function we are putting this number, this first number, second number, third number, and so on, and printing this number, right? Now again the same thing we do here for each. Then we are writing this number. Now we are defining an arrow function. Now what will this number? How do we define this? Equal to the, this arrow function, and then we define what it should do. It should do console.log of number. Now you see here. Let me do. So difference is coming. So you see these are two types of functions we are defining. First is the arrow function, normal function. Then we have an arrow function, and we have put this arrow function inside for each, and using the numbers array. Clear? Any doubts in this?
No.
Okay. So now let us move on to event listeners. Now there are so many event listeners in JavaScript, so many, okay, which do the DOM manipulation. DOM means document object model manipulation. So let us first delete slash this. All seen. Now let us define a cons button here. Okay. Now in this button, what we do, we say that we define a button also in the app. Let's go to app first. Okay. In the app means in the HTML file, let me go and let us define a button. Okay. In this button, let's keep it ID as button. Let us keep this ID equals change text. Okay. Let's keep this button as change text and right here. Okay. Now I have written here JS test. Now what we want is we will click on this button and then it will change the inner text of our of our uh, this H1 heading. Clear? When I click this button, on clicking this button, it will change the text of this heading. Now for this, I want to access this heading also. So let's say define here as, let's call this as title. Okay. We do very simple thing that there will be a button. You see button here. On clicking this button, what I want is on clicking this button, I want to change the text of this thing. Instead of this, I want to write something else. Clear? So let us go to app.js. Now we define a button and we call it document dot get element by ID. I small d. Okay. Then it is doing automatically like this. So we write this change text. What element ID is it getting? It is getting the ID, this ID, change text ID. Clear? Because we've defined this ID here, so it will get this ID here. From this, we are getting the change text ID. Now, what I want to do is I want to define another thing, title. So it is getting the title from our app. Clear? Now, I just want to print this thing. DD document for me. If I just want to print this, let's here console.log. You see what we have defined here is this coming button ID, change text button. Clear? If I did console.log button, what is coming here? It is not coming here. What coming is? It is coming button ID, change text dot button. Clear? Why
Hmm.
this is coming? Because we have used this script tag here. Instead of this script tag, we can also use the same thing inside this HTML also. Inside this HTML file also. Inside this scripts tags. But why I'm doing it differently? So that you can understand this, that in the Vue app also you have to do this differently. Clear? Now we are getting the element title. Okay. Now let us change the button text on the button text. Oh, what I'm saying is the JS text on clicking the button. When I click this button, change text, it will change the JS. What I want is in this button, const button which I have defined here, I will write event listener, which will listen my event, and on click. This click thing which is coming here is already defined. This click thing which is coming here is already defined. Okay. Then this arrow function we are defining that from nothing it should not have anything, and from nothing it creates this nothing means it will not take any uh, argument or parameter. Like in this code, we are taking this as argument or parameter, right? In this arrow function, we are not taking any argument or any function. That's how we are defining it here. Clear? Now in this arrow function, what we want is we want to have change the title inner HTML. We will change this title. Title means this title inner HTML. This is the inner HTML. We will change this inner HTML. Okay. Inner HTML, or let's say change the inner text. Okay. So it will make it change the inner text to if I reload the page now, you see the page is not reloaded again, right? It just did everything there only. Clear?
Hmm.
Now let us create a small counter app using vanilla.js.
What is the use of this line 17 and 18? Just for a reference, they are taking or what? It
Which line you
from
are saying
that.
17 and 80?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It is defining one button and title for use in our JavaScript code. This button and title is actually defined here. You see this button. Let's say I write instead of this. You see what we are getting here is using ID, change text and title. These are the
Mhm.
ID of our HTML. In our HTML, these are our IDs. instex and title. But when we are doing this using button.add-event-listener, when we are doing this, we are defining a button for using in our application. In our application means in our JavaScript code. We are defining these things so that we can use in our JavaScript code. We can also, instead of this button, I can also write it like this: document.getElement copy, and then paste
Okay,
it here.
initially we have defined this 79 and 80, and then we have used in our
Yes,
application.
yes, yes.
Yeah, got it.
It will also do the same thing.
Mhm.
Just if I just let's see, comment it. Okay, it will also do the same thing. Change. But the thing is, if I write this thing, then you will not be able to understand what is happening here, right?
Okay.
So
Right.
that's why we define our named constant named button. Constant by constant because we are not going to change it. Its value will remain constant. So that's why we are defining a constant. So generally what we do is in our app when we do the project for view, we will generally define const only. Rarely at any place we will be requiring to define let or where using let and where. Most places we will be defining using const only. Clear?
Clear.
Okay, so now let us create a small app for as a counter app using JavaScript. Mm, So I put the HTML and let's keep this as it is and create one more thing. Okay, let's have now let us create a counter counter. Okay. And then this counter what we want is we will define it like a span tag. In this span we are writing some number, let's say 0. Okay. So now what will I do? Whenever I click on what I want is when I click on a button, let us define buttons also. So it is automatically coming. Just copy paste this thing. Let's have decrement counter and increment counter.
This is a use
Now what
of
will I
that
do?
line.
Yeah. So auto completion is helpful for your code also,
Yes,
right?
yes, correct.
So that's why I said because if we are not using the AI tools and AI is going to remove us then. So better learn how to use this AI tools also. ID equals. But the thing is we should know the basics also. If we know the basics and we are using AI, that is completely fine. But if we don't know the basics and we are using AI, that is very harmful for us because someone else who know the basics will do things faster using AI, but we will not be do that and we are getting replaced.
Correct.
So let's have ID counter, then increment counter, decrement counter, app.js. Let's define uh, again const okay, counter. Okay. So what we do? Document get element by ID counter. Here again const. We get defining all these counters also. Okay. So now what we do? We want that on clicking the button increment. It should increment the counter value, and on clicking the button decrement, it should decrement the counter value. Clear? Is this clear?
Yes, yes.
Now let us also, because the thing is we are going to update these values. Now what value? This value we are going to update. Now we are accessing this value, right? We will access this value using the same thing inner text. Title.inner text. Instead of this title of inner text, we will write counter.inner text. This counter.inner text if we do, then we will get access to this 0. This 0 will get access to because ID is defined here and in this HTML tag span with ID counter, we have written this HTML. This text we have written. So when we do this, then this text get updated. Inner text get updated. Okay, so let us define. Let's say C only. Let's define it using root. Initially, we define a counter C count value, or what we call is a normal value, because it will getting changed. So we are not defining it using this. Let's define it using let. This is a variable we defined. Initial value of the variable is 0. Clear? Now what we want, that this variable get updated, and on clicking the button, this value get updated, and this value get reflected here. Clear?
Yes.
Now let's say counter. Increment counter we use. Okay, the same thing defined here. Dot add event listener, and on click we want, on click we are not getting any parameters or arguments in the function. We are not passing any arguments or parameters, and then we define it. So in this function, what we want, C plus plus, close this, and then counter dot change the counter dot inner text to the value C. Same thing, just replicate here and define it like this. Clear? Now see the difference. Very simple counter here. Clear?
Yes.
Now let's have, so you can say this is just a front-end app only. Okay. Now let us do the same thing using Vue. Okay. With this, we will also learn Vue things. What is Vue and all. So with this, we will learn that as well. Okay. So let's have, let us import the Vue using CDN itself. Uh, Go to VueJS official website. It is giving us the complete CDN is not available. Let's see, we'll have CDN link. Yeah, here it is. Vue CDN. Okay. So let us add Vue CDN. Here we added the Vue CDN here. Now we see. Let me also add one extension for Vue. This is VueJS full official extension by Vue. Okay. What I did. As soon as it is added, you see, we are also using this thing. No? So see, when we are using the script tag, and it is automatically saying that we are using Vue. Okay. Now let us do the same thing using Vue.js. So how to do this? Now in case of Vue.js, what we do is we define the similar things like we did here. So let us just comment this. Okay. And now we define a div with ID equals app. Generally we use the app word, we can also use some other word here. Now what we do, we will define everything inside this div only. Now in our page, HTML will not be visible. Actual HTML which was coming here will not be visible here. What we do is we have just defined a variable. We have just defined a HTML tag div. Now in this div ID app, now we will create a view object, and with this view object, everything will be visible. Let us show this also. Control. Right. So this thing is also visible. Let me use the horizontal line. Okay, now we start with. Okay. Now we defined a div ID app here. Now what will happen is in this is what we do. Now again we go to our app.js which we have taken here. Okay. Or instead of that, let us create the script tag here itself. Inside this script, we are going to define a new view app. Okay. Now in this app, what we write? We write a counter, the same things we have written here, but in a different way. In this divide app, we write counter, okay, h1, or let's say h3 views or counter. And now, how do we define it? Here we are defining it IDs and all. But what we do here, we just define it using these double curly braces, just using, think it like Jinja. You use Jinja in Mad 1, the same Jinja thing you can think it here. Clear? Now, next thing what we do, we define button. Now in this button, increment button, okay, ID need not to define here, but just we say that button at click, okay, and button at click, let us define the name also. On click, we define the name as increment. Here, let us just copy paste this increment, decrement, clear? Any doubts in this?
No, no.
Okay. Now in this script tag, we can also do the same thing in this page also, in this app.js also. Just I'm doing it here so that you can see the same codes here also, or better do there. Let's do there. Okay. Let us create a view app. So const, what we do, we define a view app equal view dot view dot, why is it coming? View dot is coming. Let us do it here only. It is, I think we can also define it there. Okay. There is no issue in that, but it is not taking view. So let us define it. Const app view dot create app, and then after this, right, braces, and then in this we define double quotes. And now what we do, right, tab 9 one condition. Let me use this. Or let's keep it open. It will help you understand earlier. Okay, let me write data. We define a data. Okay. in this, and these things get updated using data only. We define a data thing. Okay. Now in this data, what we do? We return the count. This is, you can say, a data type function. Okay, the function name is data, but it is just returning something, and returning what is it? It is returning. It is returning the count 0. Okay, clear this thing? Now after this data, we have methods also. In Vue, one thing is data. Okay, data is the thing which is, you can say, a variable or constant things in case of this JavaScript. When a JavaScript, when we define here, c equals to 0, counter, and increment, decrement, these are the things we have defined here. Okay, the same thing we are defining here inside this data. So count equals to 0. Clear?
Hmm.
Mhm. Okay, Raja is also there. Now we define methods. Methods means the same thing as in Python. We have methods as functions. If you recall from Python, in Python we have learned methods or functions as the same thing, right? Here also we will define methods, and methods are defined like in the same way. Now in this method we can have n number of methods. So let's have this increment function. Inside this methods we are defining a method. You can say okay. So we are defining this in the methods. We are writing methods. We are defining it as a, you can say, a dictionary type thing. And in this method we are having n number of methods. We can have increment, decrement, add, subtract, whatever we want to. We have method. We can add the method here. And what these methods are? These are just functions. These are just functions. Increment is a function. Decrement is also a function. What it does, it changes the value of these data points. Clear? Whatever we define in this data, this method string updates the value in this data only. Is it clear?
Got it. Got it. Got it.
I am not going into the so many deep things like these are the before mount, after mount, and all these things. I'm not going to there. Okay, we will go those things later on, but I'm just giving a brief intro of these things because this is how you will be using you will be creating the project. Okay, so this after this thing you will get to know one more way to make your project using many HTML files, but with this creating these apps. Okay,
Can you
some
repeat
students
what
have
you
made.
said?
See, I have told you two ways of making your app, web app. One is the way of using CDN.
Yes.
Other way I told is CLI, right?
Correct.
If
Mhm.
after this way, you will get to know one more way which you can use to make your web app using many HTML files, many template files, but you will be using Vue to do those things. I
Okay.
know
Okay.
it is confusing for now. I know it is confusing for now. Don't worry. Let me just do this. Complete this, then we will. Okay, so this is done. Is done. Okay. Now after this, create app. Okay. Now let us do app. This app we have created, right? We created this app. Now we do app.mount, and we mount this app to this ID. This ID. And how do we access the ID? We access the ID using hash, right? We access the ID using hash. Something we missed. Okay, this counter. So this counter, we have defined this count here actually, not the counter. So now you see. Yeah, hold on. Okay. Now we have mounted this app. Mounted means just a normal English thing that we are putting it in laptop. Also, you have seen that mounting a mounting a what we
Means
call
you have
pen drive or
initializing
mounting SD card.
initializing the app.
Initializing the app, yes. Initializing the app. Or mounting means just when we do ejecting things and mounting these things, right? You have done in your mobiles and laptops also. You do these things. This is the same word as mount here. We are just mounting the app inside the script tag. So we are doing it here. Clear? Now this count is the same thing as this count. Clear? Because this is a data thing. And now if we do increment, if we do decrement, it is happening here. And this also happening here. Clear? So this is a two difference between a JavaScript app and a Vue. Now what is the benefit of this? What is the benefit of this when compared with the JavaScript? In case of JavaScript, you see that in this case, code is less. If you see code here, then directly you can see that code is less as compared to the, let me copy this.
JavaScript, you mean that CDN thing?
No, vanilla JavaScript. Let me paste it
Uh,
also. You also got right here. Now this is vanilla JavaScript. Okay, and this is your VueJS. Control slash. So this is Vue.js and this is vanilla JavaScript. Now you see the difference between both. Both are doing the same thing, but just see the difference between both of them. What it does, what does Vue does? Vue takes a small app, Vue takes a small app and do everything inside this. We are not going to define IDs for everything. Clear? We are not going to define IDs for everything. Like you see here, we have defined ID for button, this button also, we have defined IDs. Right? In this case, what we did, we just said that on click, it should call this function increment. And this is the method which we have defined here. Increment is a method. Clear? And we have defined this thing using these curly braces, not using this ID. We are not updating this thing using this. That in this scenario, what we are doing is we are updating these things using get element by ID. We are getting the element by ID from the document object model and then putting it inside this cons increment counter and then updating that, adding the event listener that on click it should do this thing. Clear? You see the difference between both of them, Vue and vanilla.
Right.
Is it clear?
Yes.
Raja, is it clear?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I learned
So
it
this is the
before.
you learned already. Okay. Naman, you already knew this? Naman, you already knew this or not?
No, no.
Okay.
Actually, I have done my math to a year ago, so I'm not able to recall these things. But yes,
Okay.
you arrow function, what you have told, I can recall, and some of the things I can recall. Actually, I've done 1 year back, no, this course, math 2.
Okay. No worries. Now with this, you got to know one more way to create a web app with this, just this thing. If I tell you a
Yes, yes.
way that let us say if you want to have, let us take the case of your household services app. In that app, what you want is you want admin to create a new service and then show it in the dashboard. You can define those things inside this app, div app, and then use this view and define the data things. Data things would be those things will look there. which will be visible in the front. You can say will be visible in the front end, right? So you can define those things and then work on to make a web app, but that will have so many template files. That will also be a project made using Vue.js. But what you do is in that scenario, you have so many template files, and in every template file, you are using a specific Vue.js app. And what we do in our CDN thing and CLI thing, we create, we just create this div ID app and then use router view to route it to different pages. Slash different pages, we route it to there, and then use different routes to show the data. Clear? Now, what is the difference if we say the difference comes in HTML updates? The update is, in this case, we are doing the, in this vanilla JavaScript, we are doing the update using inner text. But in case of this view, we are doing the update using just data count. Clear? Just this data thing is making us update the content of this text which is showing on the front end. Is it clear?
Yes, yes.
Other difference is, in other case, we are using event handling. We are doing the event handling, add event listener, that on click it should handle this event, listen this event, and add the event listener to do this thing. And in this case, we are using add click directives, that on click or on clicking this, it should call this function. Clear? And third thing is, it does not have a reactive state, but it has a reactivity, built-in reactivity. Now, what is this reactivity? If you see,
Dynamic update you are saying.
your dynamic updated, yes. In this scenario, what is happening actually is, see, when we do this thing, you just see here, when we do this thing, count equals to 0. So this is showing as, you can say, a paper, and just if I go with the previous analogy which I gave you, in this scenario, what we are doing is, we are writing something already on the paper with a pen, and then erasing it or just hard erasing it and showing you some other number. We are writing it something using a pen and then creating it by using this thing. That means on clicking this button, it is just hard erasing this and then changing the HTML text itself. Clear? But in case of view, what happens is, when we are using view, we are using, we are showing this value, and this value is defined inside this view app which we have created. So it is just like a written with pencil. So whenever we are updating this thing, just clicking on this button, it is getting called here and then updating these things here. Here, now view is available here. You see this VueJS DevTools will tell you more about this reactivity thing. This root, you see here, this is the data, okay, and it is also getting updated here. Are you seeing this thing? I can also edit the value as soon as edit the value here. Let's say I make it 19, it is getting updated here also. Now how fast is it? Here, I can also delete this value. You see, value is gone. Clear? Refresh the page, you see, it is getting updated again. Any doubts in all this? Any doubts, Naman and Raja?
No. Um, So any good source to means refresh all this view thing, or I need to again go to that old videos of the IIT itself,
No
or
need
any.
for that. We will,
Mm.
if you want to go with this, then just go with the screencast. Okay. Or otherwise, we will, as I'm explaining you these things. So we will do these things. And why I'm going to the deep of this? Because as I have shown you that we are using the AI tool, so to
Uh,
code
uh, uh,
completion. So when we are
uh,
writing the code, it will automatically get completed. So why we write code line by line and every character by character? When it is getting completed automatically, why we write those things like that? We should know how these things should work, then we proceed further, right?
mm, right.
So logically, if you know the backend things, how these things work and all, then we can complete these things on our own. So
Backend
just
things
that's
I'm
why
clear, but these front end I'm actually not clear on that
backend
because
things means I want to say that backend things means this things which we are doing now, because it is this code is not going to visible on the front end, right?
yes, yes.
I mean, so that thing. So when we are clear with the logic behind all these things, how these things work and all, then we are good to go to use AI. I am not saying to use ChatGPT to make all these things. I'm just using this code completion. It will help me to write faster. Just help me to write faster. So if I'm getting my efficiency better with this, so why not use this?
Mm.
Okay.
So in this we will be using CLI or CDN thing.
So we will be using our CLI, not CDN. I've just given you a demonstration with the CDN thing. Okay. When we create the app, I have also shown you today the projects made in using CDN and CLI, right?
I think CDN
Those
is
things
easy or what?
CDN is not scalable much. That's why we will move on with CLI. Now, if I show you that this is a basic thing which is looking like that CDN is easy. Now, as I have shown you the code, now in that, if you recall from there that we have defined some template thing. In CD, let me open the project. If it is opened, mm, this is our, mm, okay, let me just open that also.
Because when you showed CDN thing, na, I was okay with that folders and all. Like, yeah, I got to know. But when you showed CLI thing, there were so many folders
Yeah,
and I got
yeah, you
confused for
got
that.
confused there because the folder was not structure was not proper. But if you create this structure here, you will get to know that. Let me go to, yeah, okay. You see here, the difference comes in this code. Now, is this code understandable to you? What I have written here?
To thoroughly go through that. As
You
it's
have to
long
thoroughly go
cycle.
through everything,
Mhm.
right? It is not understandable like in HTML. It is just simple HTML all you see. This is just simple HTML. The same thing which you are doing prevent the submitting thing, which I have already told you like at on click and forms we have on submit prevent. So it will prevent the submit of this. Okay. So this thing is not understandable for us easily, and we are not able to see this properly. But if we go in our other project, open, if I just go here, you see. Are you able to understand this? Right? What is the thing which you have written? You can easily see that this is the text which you have written. Right?
Got it.
Yes. That is the use of both these. That's why I said we will use CLI instead of CDN.
Okay,
Right?
okay.
Okay, so that's all for today. Tomorrow we will continue with this, and
So we just need to watch that screencast or any YouTube channel is there so that I
screencast will work. Screencast will be work for you.
can.
Okay.
Okay.
Tomorrow I will
Also,
tell
we
you
will
how
be
to.
going through that, like what you told today, all the things. So we will going like this only, right?
Yes, yes. Tomorrow, yes.
Mm,
Tomorrow, what we do is, firstly, because today I took time to show you the previous projects also. So
yeah.
tomorrow, what we do is we will just create one more app using this JavaScript and Vue.js. As you can see, a to-do app using the front end only.
Okay, okay.
The to-do app is created using the front end only. So you can add things in your account and bucket and remove these things later. This kind of application we will create to do it tomorrow. And after that, we will move on to creating our app, web app in the Vue CLI in our project, continuing grocery store.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah,
okay,
because
okay.
if you do that thing tomorrow, then after that, you will get to know most of the things by how are these things adding working, how are these loops working in it. Okay. After tomorrow, you will get to know the looping things also in the Vue.js, in the to-do app and all. And if time passes, then I will try for async await all those things also. Clear?
Uh, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for today.
Thanks, thanks. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, sir. Good night.
Good night.